Thank you all for tuning in to Breathing is Highly Dangerous. We are giving our first breath, working toward and hoping for the next, all the while fearing our last. Welcome to the show.
No.
The event.
A little bit more grand.
The movement.
That's better, I like that.
The movement of the century.
Well, movement, that may be a little bit much. How about a conquest to ferment the ones ignosable that try to impinge their iniquitous veracity to our thoughts?
Here is your host. He puts the U in unusual, the P in pterodactyl. Not just why, he also asked how.
Thank you all and welcome back to Breathing is Highly Dangerous. This is Emmanuel here once again with another episode. I know it's been a while and I appreciate those that listen. And thank you for coming back even despite of inconsistency of posting. But today I will be talking about an ever so misunderstood use of force, which is violence. I'm beginning to understand, I'm beginning to realize more and more how much people don't have self-control, how much people believe in rectifying or giving out punishments that they would not want to receive themselves. I'm starting to realize more that people have very short tempers, accompanied with the anxiety of the day is a lot of anger issues, and it's disgusting. And lots of people, it just seems like a lot of children throwing tantrums. No proper home training, you see. So I'd like to discuss a little bit about when violence is necessary, okay? So this is a little bit triggered by something, a couple of recent current events. Most topical, most popular at hand is the 2022 Oscars that occurred on Sunday of this past week. Will Smith on live television slapped Chris Rock. The catalyst for the slap was Chris Rock making a very elementary, a very non-consequential, very topical, roasting type joke towards Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. The joke made reference to her hair, or lack thereof, when he said he was, in paraphrasing, that he couldn't wait till G.I. Jane 2 came out. G.I. Jane, the film, was, I believe, a Demi Moore flick in which she had a buzz haircut. A similar style to Jada Pinkett's haircut at the time of these Oscars. So an observational joke. People, I don't want to have to explain humor, but that's the point of, hey, this woman's bald. There was this other woman that was bald nearly 30 years ago, so I'm going to make reference to this other bald woman from 30 years ago to the thing that I'm seeing right in front of me, to a famous person that puts themselves in the limelight. As a comedian, it's your job to make the observations that you make or have in reality into something humorous that you can get other people to see your perspective on something. Chris is an expert at this. Chris Rock is an expert at this. He's been doing it for maybe well over 30 years, or a little bit over 30 years, somewhere around there. I don't know exactly how old the man is. That joke did not go far. Did I find the joke humorous? I found it quite on the nose. It was an observation. It was very elementary. It was nothing that was required any processing power to understand. All you need to know was a reference of G.I. Jane. The reaction of the crowd was maybe some uncomfortable laughs, a little bit of some people did louder laughs than others. It was a throwaway joke. Nothing he was focused on. Chris. But moments after, Will Smith approached the stage and gave him a slap across the face. It doesn't matter what type of contact it was intending to make contact as a punishment for words that were said about his wife, Will Smith. Will Smith's wife. He proceeds back to his seat, or returns back to his seat, and says, keep my wife's name out your effing mouth, and he says it twice. Chris obliges him, says I will, and tries to make light of the moment, saying it was the greatest moment on television. Composed, Chris. Very composed. What do I think about this? Does it show that Will has an anger issue? I don't believe so. Does it show that he lacks self-control? Absolutely. However, I do believe that his self-control was influenced by the reaction of his wife. Will Smith has been in the business for nearly 40 years. Hasn't had that much controversy. The violence that he's exhibited in public before was in self-defense. But this was completely unnecessary, and in fact exposes his weakness. When you are violent unnecessarily, you expose your weakness. When your violence is unnecessary, you become vulnerable. Especially when the violence does not give the correction that you believed it would. What did Will Smith intend for this act of violence here? On national television. Obviously, he wanted to make a public effort to show that he was defending his wife. So it was not for the people, but it was a grand gesture to his wife saying, I got you, no matter what. I don't believe he felt it was, I hope he didn't believe that violence was necessary. I hope he doesn't. Because that's so, then he certainly does not wear the pants in the relationship as a man. I don't know, and probably hasn't for some time. But if he believed it was necessary, then there's some real heart-mending you got to do. He gave an apology, saying it's not the behavior that he exhibited was not the way he wants to live life, and he apologizes. He said his behavior was inexcusable. As a man, it is our job to understand our behavior before we exhibit them. Is our behavior useful before it is conducted? As an example, for those that will follow us. As an example, in leadership. If you want to call yourself a man and a leader, you need to make sure everything you're doing is something you want repeated. You want to make sure every reaction is something that you don't mind the consequences of. And you're ready for it. As a man. Does this mean you're infallible? Of course not. But that is the growth of a man. This man is 50 years old. This man has children all above the age of 20. 3 children. If he's still dealing with self-control, if this is a new problem, midlife crisis, I don't know what's happening. I don't know where this behavior came from. I don't know how common this behavior is for him. I don't keep up with it, but it is popular right now, so I happen to catch it. Do I think he shouldn't be forgiven for this mistake? Of course not. I believe everyone deserves second chance. I believe a second chance. This is Hollywood, y'all. The influence of this act and the defense given by people that agree with this act are very concerning for the future of the world. The people that are saying, hoorah, he defended his wife. That's right, Chris, shut up. Shouldn't have said something so sensitive. In reference to people saying that Jada Pinkett Smith has alopecia, so it's something uncontrollable, and that Chris obviously knew. If Chris knew, shame on him. Bad joke anyway. It was an observational joke. If he didn't know, which is more likely the case, that you're not purposely attacking someone with something that you know they can't control, at least a comedian of his caliber would not do that. More likely than not. More likely than not would not do that. It's mostly women defending the act of Will Smith. Understandably, words are not violence. If the words that you're using are not giving a threat towards violence, then the words should not be corrected with violence. Let's go to Iraq. A few years ago, a guy with long hair was murdered. Long blonde hair, he was a model evidently. He was found dead. Reportedly, he was stabbed, tortured, and had mutilation conducted on his body, all over his body. Mutilated body. They cut his hair, and it's believed he was murdered because of his long hair. And because of his flamboyant appearance and presentation of sexuality in Iraq. Other homosexuals, other LGBT personnel in the community murdered in Iraq. Senseless violence. One should not be killed for something they say, something that they do to themselves, or something that they consensually do to another person. Definitely exposures should be limited to particular audiences. If you agree with the violence, if violence as a reaction to words that you don't like is deemed as okay, in what culture and in what authority do you have to tell someone that they should not murder another person for acts that they exhibit, the things that they do in public? If you can attack someone for you having heard something, why can't you attack someone for you having seen something? Having heard something that you disagree with versus having seen something you disagree with. Where's the justification? If culture, an event, an emotional reaction can dictate, an emotional reaction to words can dictate when you're allowed to be violent, why cannot the same be said for the emotional reaction to something you see result in violence? Where's your ethical standard? Where's your ethical consistency? If you're violent with another person, you are, by virtue of becoming violent, putting both your life and their life at risk. No matter what your intention is, no matter if you use self-control, which as a matter of fact most people do not know their own strength when it comes to being violent. Most people are not put face to face in violent situations, controlled violent situations. They're mostly random, or not random, but unplanned. Most violent acts are unplanned. The instance and circumstantial. I believe in discipline. Disciplining yourself to understand when physical force is necessary versus when words may be used. The expectation that you have when you begin to use violence, if you are the initiate of violence, you better know what you're doing. You better know and have well studied the person you are attacking. Because if you have underestimated in any shape, way, or form, you are putting your life at risk. That is why it's important to know if the thing you are going to initiate violence with or for, the thing you're reacting to, is it worth your life? Potentially. There's no excuse not to, as a leader, as someone with a family, as someone that values their own life, if you do, there's no excuse not to have these considerations. Because the person you're defending yourself against, what if they are expecting you to become violent? What if they were prepared to defend themselves in case someone became violent with them? And you're the aggressor with violence. You initiate the violence. You better be prepared to fight. Not just get your way in, not just have your way, but fight. And you better be okay with defending something to the death in a non-competition, right? Any fight is a competition, really. See who comes out best. Not all fights are to the death, but you have to be okay with that. If you're not in a training situation, even in a training situation, you've got to take massive considerations with how you conduct yourself physically, how the ability of yourself, the ability of your partner, training yourself up to be disciplined, training your mind to not respond with emotion, but with logic, training yourself to understand what requires a reaction, period, emotionally or physically. If you're going to be a man, don't act like a child. Children are the ones that need defense. As a man, who's going to defend you? It's your job as a man to defend yourself and others. Shall you take on those responsibilities? Your physical strength is also what makes you a threat. Do not show your hand before it's time. And if you need to show your hand, you better know how to use them effectively. And it better be the right situation. The right situations to use violence is when there's a threat on your life, the life of someone you care about, a reasonable threat of violence to the life of your child, your wife, I'm not going to say another man, or someone you care about deeply. Could be a man. It's someone that's defenseless in themselves. Those are the people that you need to be strong for. So you need to be wise in the battles that you pick for yourself, because there may be battles that you may have to involve yourself in reasonable and articulable and consciously considered battles that you may need to fight for the people that are more defenseless. The emasculation of men in the Western world is widespread. It's a pandemic. They're telling you to feel more of your emotions. They're telling you to express more of your emotions. It wouldn't be a bad thing if you were being directed by other men that were in control of their emotions. But who's instructing you to do these things? Emotionally unstable heathens. They are your teachers. They are your counselors, your therapists. These are the people you are getting your psychological, your emotional rock from. It's not a rock. It's fucking non-Newtonian fluid at best. You sit in it too long, you will fall through. The initial contact may seem solid, but you're going to fall through as soon as you get comfortable, as soon as you stay still. And you won't know it, because every time you move, it seems hard. Every time you move, now you're surrounded, you can't get out of it. And you think that's a rock. No, that's you being consumed by deceit. You have been deceived, and it's too late. It's too late for many. The emasculation of men is rampant. Globally even. Violence is not inherently masculine. Strength is. The utilization of one's strength is. The control of one's emotion to use one's strength most effectively is. Not all violence is necessary. Not all violence is bad. But certainly, in reaction to non-threatening words, violence is completely unnecessary. In response to individuals in their own space that have no reasonable influence over your area, move from that environment if you feel threatened. You as a man have mobility. Move. Get out of there. If you can't stand it, get out of there. And have a greater influence over your environment by having control of yourself, communicating effectively. I'm working on that. I'm working on it. I have lots to learn. And I know I've got so much to learn. But I'm willing. And I'm not going to let emotional reactions to words influence me to commit violent acts that may be putting myself in danger. Nor will I involve myself in environments where that certainly seems to be the case. Protect yourselves, men. Women, protect yourselves as well, but find yourself a man that will protect you when it's necessary. That will defend you when the time is right. That was not the right time. Jada, if she influenced him to defend her with violence in that moment, what manipulation, vindictiveness. She certainly has many issues, and Will Smith is whipped. Defending her as an individual. Compare it to Iraq again. The elimination of sexually deviant behaviors. What is the result of that? There won't be an influence of children not having children, so the culture of the society isn't upended, so that there's no more children being created. Okay, and Sharia law and things like that, and it's culture, it's their religion, it's in their book. They're not supposed to tolerate it with their culture. What are they doing wrong? They feel like the book is true, and that translates into how their perception of the world is, and that these acts are indefensible, so they must react with violence in order to prevent harm from being caused to their people, according to their book. What is wrong with the way they're reacting? If we, in America, can allow the feelings of an individual person that did not make a threat of violence, it does not threaten our children, it does not threaten her, it does not threaten the culture of anything. An individual does not go against any rules in place, does not go against any perception of value. He was hired to do that job as a comedian to make fun of some people. That's the culture of the Oscars. He was obeying the culture of the Oscars. People in Iraq obeying the culture of Islamic law, Sharia law. What are they doing wrong? Apples and oranges? Not so much. Maybe a Red Delicious versus Granny Apple. Not apples and oranges though. Violence, violence. Personal joke gets a slap. Disobeying culture gets you killed. Violence, violence. I don't know. That's a little bit of an introduction to that. I don't know. Tell me your thoughts about violence. When do you think violence is acceptable? How do you protect yourself from people that want to be violent towards you? How often have you been violent unnecessarily? Did you win? Would you do it again? And what do you think about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock? What do you think about Iraqi people killing the LGBT community? What do you think about violence in response to words? What do you think about death in response to disobeying culture? This has been another episode of Breathing is Highly Dangerous. Appreciate you listening. Be blessed, stay blessed, and I'll see you in the next one.